Come here. Sit right next to me, my dears. I want to ask you a question. Do you believe that a bowl of thin porridge given away today could save your life 40 years from now? I used to not believe it myself, until that fateful night, when I lay alone in a hospital bed. The line between life and death was as thin as a thread. In my moment of greatest fear, a familiar hand grasped mine. That person wasn't a doctor, nor a blood relative, but a ghost from the past, the ragged little beggar girl my mother once took in on a stormy night. If you are listening to me from anywhere in this world, please leave a comment and hit subscribe, because there are truths that need to be spread, even if they might shake your belief in life's coincidences. And there are stories that, no matter how painful, must be told so we can see the light. Let me tell you about the greatest seed of kindness my family ever planted. It was a small house back in rural Pennsylvania, so small that everything fit into 2 rooms, a kitchen and a bedroom. We had almost nothing, but what we had, we took care of with love. The wood-burning stove stayed lit all day long. Smoke rose and soaked into everything, the loose board walls, the dishcloth hanging on the nail, even my little cotton dress that my mother sewed by hand. If I close my eyes now, I can still smell it. The smell of burning wood, mixed with freshly brewed coffee. That strong coffee, really strong, that my father drank before leaving for work. He was a construction laborer, got up when the rooster was still crowing, and only came back when the sun had already gone down. His hands were full of calluses, thick, but when it came time to stroke my head, they were the gentlest hands in the world. My mother, poor thing, did a little of everything. She washed clothes for others, sewed when work appeared, took care of me, and still managed to perform miracles with the little we had. I saw her looking at the bottom of the rice tin, calculating if it would last the week, or counting the beans in the sieve, with that tired look of someone who knows the month is always longer than the money. We mostly ate cornmeal mush with boiled cabbage or beans. And you, my friend, do you like cornmeal mush? To this day, I make it here at home. Sometimes, when the month was good, a small piece of pork appeared, and that turned into a party. My mother fried it with garlic, and the fat sizzled in the cast-iron skillet. The smell filled the whole house, and I stood there open-mouthed, waiting for my share. But it wasn't always, no. There were days when dinner was just the mush itself, with a little drizzle of oil on top and a pinch of salt. My father ate without complaining. He said it was good food, honest people's food. I believed him. Back then, we didn't have television. We didn't have radio. The entertainment was sitting on the doorstep and watching the day pass. I would stay there playing with the old doll my mother had made of cloth and stuffed with sawdust. The doll's hair was made of yellow yarn, but it was all tangled. Even so, I loved that doll as if it were real. It was on an afternoon like that, with a fine drizzle falling, that everything changed. I was sitting near the window, trying to mend the doll's little arm that had come loose. The needle was thick, borrowed, and I pricked my finger every now and then, but I didn't give up. A poor child learns early to fix things, because buying new is not an option. The rain fell gently outside, turning the dark earth of the yard into mud. The smell of wet earth came in through the window, and I liked that. It was a smell of promise, you know, as if life could start over after every rain. That was when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 little taps on the door, light, almost timid. I raised my head and looked at my mother. She was at the stove, stirring the pot of beans with the wooden spoon. She wiped her hands on her stained apron, smoothed her hair back, and went to the door. When she opened it, there was that silence. You know that silence that seems like even the wind stopped blowing? That the whole world holds its breath? It was a girl, about my size, maybe a little taller. Her brown hair was plastered to her forehead, dripping with rain. Her dress, which once might have been pink, was now just a torn rag on the shoulder. Her bare feet were dirty with mud, and she was trembling. I don't know if it was from cold or fear, but what really marked me were her eyes. Her eyes gave everything away, my daughter. Hunger, fear, fatigue, and one thing that I, even as a child, could see. Shame. Shame for being there begging. "Ma'am." She spoke softly, almost whispering. "Don't you have a plate of food?" I remember my mother's expression clearly. She looked at the girl, then looked at the pot on the stove, then looked at me, and I saw in that moment the weight of the decision falling on her, because that day the food was already counted. I had heard my parents whispering the night before. My father had said, "Today it's going to be little Mary, but tomorrow I get paid. Hang in there, woman." And my mother had sighed in that way, of someone who carries the world on her back, and answered, "We always hang in there, right? There is no other way." So, when that girl appeared at the door asking for food, I knew there were no leftovers. There wasn't even enough for the three of us. But my mother? Ah, my mother. She took a deep breath, held the doorknob firmly and said, "Come in. My child, you don't stay outside in the rain, asking for food." The girl entered slowly, so slowly that it seemed she was afraid of dirtying the floor, as if she didn't deserve to be there. I kept watching, still with the doll in my lap, not knowing exactly what to do. My mother pulled out the wooden stool and said, "Sit here." The girl sat down. Her little hands were trembling. I saw when my mother took the pot, put more water in the beans, stirred it well, and served it in a deep plate. It wasn't much. It was what there was. But my mother served it with affection, as if she were serving a banquet. When the girl saw the plate in front of her, her eyes filled with tears. She tried to hold back, but couldn't. A tear rolled down, cleaning a little streak on her dirty cheek. "Thank you, ma'am," she whispered, and started to eat. She ate slowly, but with a gratitude I had never seen before. Every forkful seemed to be the most important thing in the world. She chewed properly, savored it, didn't waste a single grain. I stayed there standing, feeling a tightness in my chest. I didn't quite know what that was. Today I know. Empathy was seeing someone even smaller, even more fragile than me, and understanding that life could be hard, very hard. When she finished, my mother asked, "What is your name, my child?" She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and answered, "Eleanor. Eleanor." That name stayed engraved in me forever. That night, after the rain stopped and the sky became full of stars, my mother talked to my father. I pretended I was sleeping, but I heard everything. "This girl isn't going back to the street," my mother said with that firm voice she used when she had already decided something. "Woman, we barely have enough for us," my father replied tiredly. "How are we going to handle one more mouth? We'll find a way, we always have. If God sent her to our door, it's because we have to take care of her." My father stayed quiet for a while, then sighed. "You are stubborn, you know that?" "I am. And you love me for it." And so, without signed papers, without a talk with a judge, without anything official, Eleanor stayed. Times were different back then, my dear friend. Life was simpler. We didn't need a red stamp or a court ruling. Just my father's nod and my mother's hot soup were enough to commit a lifetime. Sometimes I think a bond forged in love is stronger than any legal paper could ever be. That night, she slept on the kitchen floor, on a thin mattress my mother improvised with old clothes. I heard when she lay down, heard the creaking of the boards, and also heard when she started to cry softly, hidden, thinking no one was listening. But I heard, and it was that night, my dear, that I understood that life could be one way for me, but a completely different way for another person, and that a plate of food for me was just a plate, but for her it was the difference between having hope or not. Eleanor stayed, and our life from that day on was never the same again. When I woke up the next day, the sun was already coming through the crack in the window, that little golden light that came slowly, drawing a line on the cement floor. I stretched, still sleepy, and that was when I remembered the girl. I got up quickly and went to the kitchen. Eleanor was there, sitting on the same stool as yesterday, with her hands in her lap. It seemed she was afraid to move, afraid to take up space. My mother was already at the stove, stoking the wood to heat the water for coffee. "Good morning," I said a bit awkwardly. Eleanor looked at me and gave a small smile, one of those that don't show teeth. "Good morning," she answered softly. My mother turned to both of us and spoke. "Margaret, set the table. Today the three of us are having breakfast together." I grabbed the small plates, the 2 mugs we had, and a cup without a handle that served for when there were visitors. I put everything on the small wooden table that wobbled because one leg was shorter than the others. My father had promised to fix it, but the tool was always loaned out to the neighbor. The breakfast was simple. There was stale bread that my mother toasted on the stoveplate and spread a little lard on top. It wasn't butter. It was really lard. kept in a small glass jar. But it tasted good. The smell of toasted bread filled the kitchen and made my stomach growl. Eleanor ate slowly, as someone who doesn't want to seem starving, but I saw that she was. Her little eyes followed every movement of my mother's hand when she cut the bread. And when my mother put a piece on her plate, Eleanor closed her eyes for a second, as someone thanking in silence. "Eleanor," my mother began, sitting on the chair and resting her elbows on the table. "You need to tell me where you came from, my child. Is there anyone looking for you?" Eleanor lowered her head. She kept picking at the bread, crumbling the edges, but not eating. "There's no one looking." "No, ma'am." "And your mother? Your father?" "My mother left with a man a long time ago." "My father?" "I didn't even know him properly. My mother said he had gone to work far away and never came back." Her voice was so tiny it seemed like it would disappear into the air. I stopped chewing and kept watching. My mother sighed deeply and placed her hand over Eleanor's hand. "And you were living where?" "At my aunt's house, my mother's sister. But she said I was too much expense, that I ate her bread, wasted her water, took up space. One day she told me to leave." "Told you to leave?" my mother repeated, and I saw the revolt in her eyes. "A child?" Eleanor just nodded yes. Tears began to fall, wetting the small plate of bread. "She said I had to fend for myself, that I was already big enough for that." My mother got up, went to Eleanor, and hugged her head against her stomach. Eleanor began to cry for real. That held-back cry that must have been stuck in her throat for days, maybe weeks. "Here you are, not an expense, my daughter." My mother spoke with a choked voice. "Here, you are a human being. You are family, and family takes care of each other." I stayed there, standing, with the piece of bread in my hand, feeling a lump in my throat. I had never seen my mother cry, but that day I saw her eyes turn red. My father arrived early in the morning, covered in cement dust, with his shirt stuck to his back with sweat. When he saw Eleanor still there, he stopped at the door. "So it's really serious, right, woman?" "It is serious, William," my mother answered firmly. My father kept looking at Eleanor, at me, at my mother. Then he sighed and took off the old straw hat he used to protect himself from the sun. "All right then, but she's going to have to help. In this house, everyone does their part." "I will help, yes sir," Eleanor said quickly, getting up from the stool. "I know how to wash clothes, fetch water, sweep, whatever you order." My father looked at her and his face, which was always hard, softened a little bit. "So, okay. Welcome, girl." And that was how Eleanor came to be part of our house. The first days were strange. I wasn't used to sharing things. The doll was mine. The blanket was mine. The corner near the window was mine. But now there was another person there, taking up space, breathing the same air. Eleanor was careful with everything. She picked things up as if they were going to break. When I lent her the doll, she held it with both hands and thanked me, as if I had given her a real present. When my mother asked her to fetch water from the well, she went running, came back with the full bucket, without spilling a drop. There was an afternoon I was in the yard, under the apple tree, and Eleanor came to sit next to me. We stayed quiet for a while, just listening to the wind sway the leaves and the distant sound of a rooster crowing. "Out of time. Margaret," she spoke without looking at me. "Do you think your mother is going to send me away?" I looked at her surprised. "Why would she do that?" Because I'm not her daughter. I am nobody." That hurt me. It hurt in a way I couldn't explain. "My mother isn't like that," I said. "When she decides something, she doesn't go back." Eleanor stayed quiet, but I saw she had held back a smile. "You are lucky," she said softly. "Lucky how? To have a family, a mother who wants you, a father who comes home." I never had that. I didn't know what to answer, because it was true. I had complained so many times about the little food, the old dress, the tight shoes, but I had a father and a mother, and I was starting to understand that. It was a lot. "Now you have," I said, looking at her. "You have my mother and my father, and me too." Eleanor looked at me in a way I will never forget, as if I had said the most important thing in the world. "Serious? Serious." She gave a real smile this time, and we stayed there sitting under the apple tree, watching the sun go down slowly and paint the sky orange and pink. My mother started teaching things to Eleanor. Taught her to make the cornmeal mush at the right consistency without lumping. Taught her to use the flat iron heated on coals without burning the clothes. Taught her to sew, threading the needle with patience, showing the right stitch to make a hem. Eleanor learned fast. It was as if she had stored everything inside her, waiting for someone to teach. Sometimes I got a little jealous, seeing my mother with her hand over Eleanor's hand, teaching the way to make homemade bread. "Mom," I complained one day, "now you only care about Eleanor." My mother stopped what she was doing and came to me. She sat on the edge of the bed and pulled my face to her hands, which smelled of lye soap. "Margaret, my daughter, look at me." I looked with eyes full of stubbornness. "You are my girl. You came out of me. Nothing in this world is going to change that. But Eleanor has no one. If we don't take care of her, who will?" "But why does it have to be us?" my mother sighed. "Because we can. And when we can help and don't help, my daughter, we lose a piece of our humanity. We turn hard inside. Do you want to be like that?" I shook my head no. "Then understand. When we share, it doesn't become less. It becomes more. More love, more blessing, more people to hold our hand when life gets tight." I didn't know what to say. I just watched her lying there on that cold floor, trying to make herself small, trying to disappear. My heart ached in a way I hadn't felt before. I couldn't let her stay down there. "Eleanor?" I whispered into the darkness. "Hi," she answered, a bit startled, her voice trembling. I sat up and patted the empty space beside me. "Do you want to sleep here in the bed with me? It's warm, and there's plenty of room for two." Even in the dark, I could sense her little face lighting up. She got up quickly, took the thin blanket, and climbed into the bed. We huddled there, sharing the pillow, sharing the warmth. "Thank you, Margaret," she whispered. "You're welcome." We slept like that, two girls, two stories, a life starting to intertwine. And outside, the wind blew gently, bringing the smell of wet earth and jasmine that grew near the gate. Inside our small house, something was growing, something I didn't yet know how to name. But today, old as I am, I know. It was love, the kind that chooses to stay, the kind that shares bread even when bread is scarce, the kind that doesn't need blood to be family. And the weeks turned into a routine that for me seemed like it had always existed. Eleanor woke up before everyone else. I could still hear her moving slowly, trying not to make noise, getting out of bed carefully so as not to wake me. When I opened my eyes, she was already in the kitchen helping my mother. She stoked the fire, put the kettle on to boil, swept the floor with the corn broom that shed bits of straw along the way. My mother always said, "Eleanor, you don't need to wake up so early, child. Rest a little." But Eleanor shook her head. "I like to help, Mrs. Mary. It makes me feel useful, Mrs. Mary." That was what she called my mother. She could never call her Mom, you know? I think there was a respect kept in there, a fear of occupying a place she thought wasn't hers. My mother never forced it. She said everyone has their own time to settle into things. I, on the other hand, woke up with the sun already high, stretching like a cat on the roof, and only got up when my mother shouted, "Margaret, get up from there, you lazy girl." Eleanor laughed softly when I arrived in the kitchen, all sleepy, hair messy on one side, stepping lazily. "You sleep like a rock," she said. "And you wake up like a chicken?" I replied, but without malice. We had created a way of talking like that, with jokes, with good teasing. That kind of intimacy that only is born when we share the same roof, the same plate, the same blanket. Our routine was simple, but it had a rhythm. Right after breakfast, we went to the yard to fetch water from the well. The well was at the end of the yard, surrounded by mossy stones and a thick rope that we pulled with force. Eleanor always wanted to pull it alone, but the bucket was too heavy. "Let me help you," I said. "I can do it, Eleanor. Stop being stubborn." And we pulled together, both holding the rope, one in front of the other, feet buried in the red clay to have more strength. When the bucket arrived at the top, full to the brim, we celebrated as if we had won a war. Then, we had to wash clothes. My mother took the big bundle to the wash basin that was outside, under a mulberry tree that gave nice shade. We scrubbed with lye soap, beat it on the stone, twisted it with force until the water ran clear. Eleanor was good at that. She had small hands, but strong ones. I complained that the soap stung my eyes, that the water was too cold, but she never complained. She scrubbed silently, concentrated, as if every piece of clothing were a gift. "Don't you get tired, Eleanor?" I asked one day. "I do. But getting tired working is better than getting tired begging." That shut me up, because she was right. She knew what it was to knock from door to door, to hear no, to go hungry. And now, there, in that small yard, with hands inside cold water and stinging soap, she was home. She had a place to stay. My mother watched us from afar, while hanging clothes on the improvised clothesline my father had made with wire. I saw the little way she smiled to herself, as someone seeing something beautiful happening. In the afternoon, when the sun got fierce, we went to school. It was far. We had to walk almost half an hour along a dirt road. We carried the same old cloth bag that my mother had sewn, each one holding a strap. The teacher was Mrs. Helen, a serious lady who wore round glasses and tapped the ruler on the desk when we talked too much. She was surprised when she saw Eleanor for the first time. "And who is this girl?" she asked. "She is my sister," I answered without thinking. Eleanor looked at me with wide eyes. I had never said that before. I think even I didn't know I felt that way until the word came out. "Your sister, Mrs." Helen repeated, furrowing her brow. "Yes, she lives with me." "I understand. What is your name, girl?" "Eleanor, ma'am." "Well, Eleanor, here we respect, pay attention, and do the lessons. Can you do that?" "Yes, I can, ma'am." "Mrs." Helen nodded and pointed to the empty desk next to mine. "Then sit there." Eleanor sat down, and I saw she was nervous. Her hands shook a little when she opened the old notebook my mother had managed to borrow from the neighbor. She didn't know how to read properly. She knew the letters, but putting them together was difficult. In the first weeks, I helped her in secret. When Mrs. Helen turned her back to write on the chalkboard, I showed Eleanor how to read the words. I spelled softly. B with A is ba, B with E is B. Eleanor learned fast. She was hard-working. She stayed up late at night by the light of the kerosene lamp trying to copy the letters perfectly. I saw her biting her lip, concentrated, forehead furrowed. "You will learn, Eleanor," I said, already lying in bed. "I need to learn. I want to be someone in life." "Are you already someone?" "No, Margaret. I want to be someone who doesn't need to ask anyone for anything, someone who can fend for herself." That made me sad, because I saw that, as much as we gave affection, food, shelter, Eleanor still carried that mark of someone who was rejected, who was sent away. And that doesn't come off easily. No, it sticks to the soul. But the days passed and I saw her loosening up more, laughing more. There was a day she started singing while washing dishes. It was a silly song that Mrs. Helen had taught in school. "Row, row, row your boat." My mother stopped chopping the collard greens and stood watching with that tiny smile on her lips. I also stopped because it was the first time I saw Eleanor singing for real, without fear, without shame. "Sing more, Eleanor," I asked. She turned red, but continued, and we sang together, the three of us, there in that kitchen full of wood smoke and the smell of sautéing garlic. My father arrived in the middle of the singing and stood in the doorway, just watching. "What is this, a party?" he asked, but he was smiling. "It's joy, William," my mother answered. "Something this house was needing." My father shook his head, took off his hat, and went to wash his hands in the basin. But I saw that he was happy. Even he, who was a serious man, had softened with Eleanor's presence. There was a day my father brought a surprise. It was the end of the month, payday, and he arrived with a brown paper package under his arm. "What is this?" my mother asked suspiciously. "Open it and see." My mother opened it slowly, and inside were two dresses. One was yellowish, with little flowers embroidered on the hem. The other was light green, with little wooden buttons on the front. "William," my mother started with a choked voice. "One for each girl," he said, looking at me and Eleanor. "Can't have two girls in the house wearing torn clothes. People talk." Eleanor stood still in disbelief. I ran and grabbed the yellow dress. I hugged it against my chest, but Eleanor didn't move. "Go on, girl," my father spoke. "Take yours. It's really for me, Mr. William?" "Of course it is. Or do you think I was going to leave you out?" Eleanor picked up the dress slowly, as if it were something sacred. She ran her hand over the fabric, felt the texture, smelled it, and started to cry. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you. Thank you." My father was awkward. Men don't know how to deal with a girl's tears. He scratched his head and grumbled. All right, now stop crying and go try that on." We tried on the dresses right there. They were big because my father didn't really know the sizes, but my mother said she would adjust them. The important thing was that now we had new clothes that no one had used before. Eleanor slept, hugging the dress that night. I saw when she pressed it against her chest, closed her eyes and whispered, "I have a new dress. I have a family." And I understood in that moment the size of the thing. For me, a dress was just a dress. But for her, it was proof that she mattered, that she wasn't invisible, that someone had thought of her. The months went by like that, between work, school, laughter, and lessons. We fought sometimes, of course, kid stuff. I complained that Eleanor had used my comb without asking. She complained that I had eaten the last apple without sharing. But at the end of the day, we always made peace. My mother said, "Sisters fight, but then it passes. That's how it is." And it was. We fought in the morning, and by afternoon we were holding hands, going to fetch wood in the bush. There was an afternoon we sat under the apple tree, and Eleanor asked me, "Margaret, do you think I'm going to stay here forever? Why wouldn't you stay?" "I don't know. I'm afraid your mother will get tired of me." "My mother isn't like that. She doesn't give up on people." Eleanor stayed quiet, poking the earth with a twig. I wanted to be able to call her Mom, but I can't. Why? Because I'm afraid. Afraid that if I call her that, she'll realize I want too much and then send me away. I held her hand. "Eleanor, listen, you are not going to be sent away. You are my sister now, and sisters don't go away. Sisters stay." She looked at me with those eyes full of mixed hope and fear. "Promise? Promise." And I promised for real, my dear. I promised with my heart. Because in that small yard, under that old apple tree, I had understood what it was to have a sister. Not a blood sister, but a sister by choice. A sister that life brought in the rain and that we decided to keep. Things were going well, too well perhaps. And life, my dear, has a way of reminding us that nothing lasts forever in the same way. There is always a stone on the path, a curve we didn't expect. The stone appeared on a Sunday afternoon. We had gone to Mass in the village, that small church with white walls where the choir sang out of tune. My mother insisted on going every Sunday, even when she was tired. She said it was important to give thanks, because God had given us a roof and food on the table, even if it was little. Eleanor always went quietly, holding hands with me, wearing the green dress my father had given her. She liked the Mass. She liked hearing the priest talking about forgiveness, mercy, about God who welcomes the little ones. I saw her closing her eyes at the blessing, as if she were keeping every word. After Mass, we always stayed a little at the church door, talking to the neighbors. My mother swapped recipes, asked about someone's health, commented on the weather, small-town folk stuff, you know, where everyone knows everyone. That was when Mrs. Nancy appeared. Mrs. Nancy was a tall, thin lady who wore a tight bun on top of her head and had a shrill voice that got on your nerves. She was known for being a gossip, the kind who likes to stick her nose where she isn't called. Every neighborhood has a Mrs. Nancy, doesn't it? Sadly, there are always people who are so unhappy with their own lives that they try to poison the happiness of others. But as my mother taught me, don't let their noise drown out your music. If you know a Mrs. Nancy, just smile and keep walking. She came straight towards my mother, with that little way of someone who wants to seem concerned, but actually just wants to create trouble. "Mary, dear," she began with a fake smile, "can I have a quick word with you?" My mother looked at her already suspicious, but answered, "Sure, Nancy. What is it?" "Mrs." Nancy looked at me and Eleanor and said, "Maybe it's better for the girls to go play over there. You can speak in front of them." My mother cut in dryly. "Mrs." Nancy gave that little smile again and lowered her voice. "Even so. Well, I heard some comments. You know how it is? People talk. They are saying you took in a street girl to raise, that no one knows where she came from, who her family is. And so, my mother answered, crossing her arms. Well, Mary, you have to be careful. Street children. We never know, right? They might have bad habits, might steal, might bring trouble, and you have your daughter to think about. Your house, your reputation. I saw my mother's face turn red, not with shame, with anger. Nancy, with all due respect, but you are talking about Eleanor, a child, a girl who is not to blame for having been abandoned. And if you or any other person has a problem with that, the problem is yours, not mine. Mrs. Nancy feigned shock. I am only trying to help you, Mary. People talk. You know how it is. Let people talk. My mother answered firmly. I sleep with my conscience, in peace. And you, Nancy, do you sleep? Mrs. Nancy had no answer, turned her back, and left huffing softly. I looked at Eleanor. She was pale, with her eyes fixed on the ground. Her hands were trembling. I held her hand, squeezed it tight, but she didn't look at me. On the way back home, no one said anything. The silence was heavy, full of unspoken things. My mother walked in front with a firm step, but I saw she was angry. My father, who had heard everything from afar, walked beside her, silent. When we arrived home, Eleanor went straight to the yard, sat under the apple tree, hugged her knees, and stayed there quiet. I went after her. Eleanor, leave me alone, Margaret, please. I went back inside, my heart tight. My mother was in the kitchen, stirring the pot with more force than normal. My father sat in the chair, took off his hat, and ran his hand through his hair. Woman, he began, this story is going to cause talk. Let them talk, my mother answered without looking at him. But you know how people are around here. They like a long tongue, and the girl is going to suffer for it. My mother stopped stirring the pot, turned to him, and spoke with a choked voice. And what do you want me to do, William? Send her away? Throw her back on the street to please Mrs. Nancy and the rest of the pack? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? My father sighed deeply. I'm saying we need to be careful. Protect the girl. Because the world out there isn't pretty. Mary. And if people start mistreating her, we won't be able to protect her from everything. My mother sat in the chair next to him, tired. I know, she whispered. I know. But I can't give up on her. I can't. I stood there, leaning against the wall, listening to everything. And I understood in that moment that having Eleanor at home wasn't just dividing the bread. It was facing the world together. It was enduring judgment, gossip, the pointing finger. Later, when the sun was already setting, I went back to the yard. Eleanor was still there, same place. But now she was crying, a soft, choked cry of someone who doesn't want to bother anyone. I sat next to her, leaned my shoulder on her shoulder. I'm going away, she said between sobs. No, you're not. Yes, I am. I am bringing trouble to your family. I heard everything. Your father is worried. Your mother is fighting because of me. Eleanor, look at me. She turned her face, eyes red and swollen. We don't want you gone. None of us. You understood wrong. But Mrs. Nancy said. Mrs. Nancy is an old gossip who has nothing to do. My mother put her in her place. Did you see? But people will talk. Let them talk. We don't live to please people. We live to do what is right. Eleanor took a deep breath, wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I don't want to be a burden, Margaret. You are not a burden. You are my sister. She looked at me in that way, of someone who wants to believe but is afraid. Promise you won't let me go? Promise. We stayed there, sitting under the apple tree, watching the night arrive slowly. The wind swayed the leaves and brought the smell of damp earth. From afar, we heard the sound of a fiddle playing at the neighbor's house. That Sunday had left a mark. The first shadow had appeared, and we were going to have to learn to live with it, to face whatever came. Because choosing to love, my dear, isn't just the beautiful part. It's also the part that hurts, the part that demands courage. And we, in that small house in Pennsylvania, were learning that the hard way. By living, Eleanor became quieter, more withdrawn. She still helped with everything, still studied with dedication, but there was a sadness in her eyes that wasn't there before. It was as if she carried an invisible weight on her back. I tried to cheer her up, told silly stories, invented games, shared the last apple from the tree, but nothing seemed to work right. Eleanor smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My mother noticed too. I saw her looking at Eleanor with that motherly worry, that way of someone who feels when something isn't right. But she didn't force it, just stayed nearby, offering presents. It was on a night of a full moon that everything changed. I had woken up in the middle of the night thirsty. My mouth was dry and I needed water. I got out of bed slowly, so as not to wake Eleanor. But when I looked to the side, the bed was empty. I found it strange. I looked at the wall clock my father had hung in the living room. It must have been about 3 inches the morning, maybe 4. Where had she gone? I walked through the dark house, tiptoeing. I heard a small noise coming from the yard. It was a muffled cry, as if someone was trying not to make noise, but couldn't hold it in. I opened the door slowly and saw Eleanor. She was sitting on the porch steps, hugging her own knees, rocking back and forth. The moonlight hit her, and I could see the tears running down her face. "Eleanor," I called softly. She jumped, wiped her face quickly, and tried to hide it. "Margaret, you scared me. What are you doing out here? It's so late." I couldn't sleep. I sat next to her on the steps. The night was cool, and the wind brought the smell of rosemary from the bed my mother tended near the gate. "Are you crying again?" I said, looking at her. "No, I'm not." "Eleanor," I saw. No use lying. She stayed quiet for a while, just looking at the sky full of stars. Then she sighed deeply, in that way of someone tired of holding everything alone. "Margaret, can I tell you something?" "Of course. We don't keep secrets." She took a deep breath again, as if gathering courage. "Do you remember I said my mother left with a man?" "I remember." "Well, but I didn't tell everything. I didn't tell because it hurts too much." I held her hand, waiting for her to continue. The moon illuminated her face, and I saw she was trembling. "My mother, she didn't want me, Margaret. Since I was born, she said that." She looked at me with eyes cold as ice, "Margaret. She didn't just leave. She knelt down to my level, grabbed my shoulders, and whispered, 'You are the mistake that ruined my life. Every time I look at you, I see the chains that held me back.' She didn't just walk away. She threw away my childhood like it was garbage. She made me believe that my very existence was a sin. If anyone listening to this right now has ever been made to feel like a burden or a mistake, let this old woman tell you one thing. They were wrong. No one is born a mistake. Your very existence is a miracle in itself, please. Never forget that." My heart tightened. I didn't know what to say. When I was very little, she left me alone at home for days. Sometimes I was so hungry, I ate raw flour from those she kept in the jar or dipped old bread in water to get softer. "Eleanor, let me finish. I need to speak. Otherwise I won't be able to ever." I nodded, holding her hand firmly. "One day she met a man. He had a truck and was going to travel west. My mother packed her bags and said she was going along." I asked, "And me, Mom?" Do you know what she answered? I couldn't speak. I just squeezed her hand more. She said, "You fend for yourself. You're already big enough." I was 8 years old, Margaret. 8 years old. Tears were running down my face now, too. I couldn't hold them back. No. She left me at my aunt's house, but my aunt didn't want me. She put me to work all day, washing, cooking, fetching water, and when I complained of tiredness, she hit me with a switch. She said I had to be thankful for having a roof. Eleanor, I didn't know. Nobody knew. I never told because I was ashamed, you know? Ashamed of having been abandoned as if I were. As if I were no good. As if I didn't deserve to be loved. She started to cry harder now and I hugged her. I hugged her tight, as if I could take all that pain from her just with the hug. When my aunt sent me away, I spent days walking, asking for food at houses. There were people who gave, people who cursed, people who threw dirty water on me to get off their porch, until I arrived here at your house. She pulled away a little, held my face with both hands, and looked deep into my eyes. Margaret, you have no idea what your family did for me. No idea. For the first time in my life, someone looked at me and saw a person. Not a burden, not a nuisance. People. Because you are people, Eleanor. You always were. But I am so afraid that this will end, That one day your mother will get tired of me, that your father will decide I am too much expense, that you will find better friends and won't want to share the bed with me anymore. Eleanor, listen to what I am going to tell you. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. You are not an expense. You are not a burden. You are my sister. And a sister doesn't get tired of a sister. We can fight, we can argue, but we don't abandon. Never. But Mrs. Nancy said, Mrs. Nancy doesn't live here. She knows nothing. She doesn't know you, doesn't know us. Her words are worth nothing. Eleanor cried a little more. But now it seemed like a different cry. A cry that cleanses, that relieves, like when we cry and then take a deep breath and feel we can continue. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for listening to me, for not judging me. I would never judge you, never. We stayed there sitting until the sky began to lighten. We saw the stars disappearing one by one and the moon losing strength. The neighbor's rooster started to crow, announcing the new day. When we went back inside the house, my mother was already awake, stoking the fire for coffee. She looked at both of us, saw our red eyes, and asked nothing, just opened her arms. Eleanor ran and threw herself into my mother's hug. And there, in that hug, she cried everything that had been kept inside. My mother just stroked her hair and repeated softly, My daughter, my girl, you are home now. You are home. And it was in that moment, my dear, that I saw Eleanor really believe. Believe that she had a place, that she wasn't going to be sent away, that she was wanted. The wound was still there, of course. A wound of abandonment doesn't heal overnight. But now she wasn't alone carrying that. Now she had us. She had someone to hold her when the weight became too much. And that I learned that night makes all the difference. All. In the days that came after, Eleanor seemed lighter. Not that the sadness had gone away completely. But now she talked more, laughed more, played more. It was as if taking that secret out of her had opened space for other things to enter. Good things. One afternoon we were washing clothes in the tank when Eleanor stopped, looked at my mother and spoke. Mrs. Mary, can I ask you something? Of course, my child. Why did you take me in to raise? Why risk so much for a girl who wasn't even your daughter? My mother stopped wringing the clothes, wiped her hands on her apron, and looked at Eleanor with that way of hers, firm and sweet at the same time. Do you know why, Eleanor? Because when you knocked on that door asking for food, I didn't see a stranger. I saw what I could have been. I saw what my Margaret could have been if life had been different. And I thought, if one day my daughter needs help, I want someone to open the door for her too. Eleanor stayed quiet, absorbing those words. We don't choose where we are born, Eleanor. We don't choose the family we have. But we can choose what kind of person we want to be. And I chose to be the person who opens the door, who shares the bread, who extends the hand. Even when the bread is little, especially when the bread is little, because that's when we show what we are made of. Eleanor hugged my mother right there in the middle of the yard, with hands wet with soapy water. And my mother hugged back, tight, as if saying without words, You are mine now and always. I stood there watching that scene and understood that that was the true revelation. It wasn't just about Eleanor's painful past. It was about what love can do, how it can heal what seemed impossible to heal, how it can build family where there was only emptiness. And in that small yard, under the Pennsylvania sun, we were building that. We were building a home. After that night of conversation, something changed inside me too. I always knew Eleanor had suffered, but hearing it from her, with those painful words, with that trembling voice, was different. It was as if I had woken up to a reality I didn't know. I started noticing small things I had never paid attention to before, in the way Eleanor kept every crumb of bread, wrapping it in a little cloth so as not to waste, in the way she shrank when someone spoke louder, as if expecting a scream or a blow, in the way she thanked for everything, even for the simplest things. Thank you for the glass of water, Margaret. Thank you for lending me the comb. Thank you for waiting for me to finish copying the lesson. There were so many thank yous that sometimes I felt like holding her shoulders and saying, You don't need to thank for everything. You live here. This is your house too. But I didn't say it because I had understood that those thank yous weren't just politeness. It was a fear. Fear that if she stopped thanking, if she stopped being useful, someone would realize she was there and decide to send her away. My dear, have you ever seen a dog that has been kicked too many times? It flinches even when you reach out to pet it. That was Eleanor. She apologized for taking up space because she had been taught that her existence was an inconvenience. It took a long time to convince her that breathing our air wasn't a debt she had to pay back. At school, I also started seeing things that went unnoticed before. The girls in our class weren't mean, but they weren't welcoming either. Eleanor always stayed a little apart at recess, leaning against the wall, watching the others play. One day I asked, "Why don't you go play with them? They don't call me." "But you can go over and ask to join the game." Eleanor looked at me with that little way of hers, kind of ashamed. "I'm afraid to hear no." That broke my heart, because I had never been afraid to hear no. I simply arrived, asked, and if it didn't work, I invented another game. But Eleanor had already heard no so much in life that each one hurt as if it were the first. I decided to do things differently. At recess, I grabbed her hand and went to where the girls were playing Ring Around the Rosie. "Can we play too?" I asked. The girls looked at me, then at Eleanor, and one of them, Teresa, shrugged. "You can, but you have to know the song." "We know," I lied. Eleanor didn't know, but I was going to teach her. We entered the circle and started to spin. Eleanor got the lyrics wrong, stepped on the other's feet by accident, but she was smiling. A true smile, one of those that light up the whole face. When the game ended, Teresa came to talk to me. "Margaret, is it true your mother took her off the street?" I felt my blood boil, but I took a deep breath, the way my mother did when she wanted to stay calm. "My mother took her in because she needed it, just like Jesus teaches. Or don't you pay attention in Mass?" Teresa had no answer, shook her head and walked away. But I knew that conversation was going to spread, that other children were going to ask, that Eleanor was going to have to endure looks, whispers, mean questions disguised as curiosity, and I couldn't protect her from everything, as much as I wanted to. At home, things were also different. My father became more attentive with money. He counted and recounted the coins, did math on paper, sighed deeply. One more mouth to feed, one more body to clothe, one more child to take care of. All this weighed on the budget that was already tight. There was a night I heard my parents talking softly in the bedroom. I should have been sleeping, but I was awake, looking at the dark ceiling. "Mary, I don't know if we're going to make it," my father said with a tired voice. "We'll find a way. We always have. But now it's harder. Work is slow, money doesn't stretch, and there's still people's talk. William, what do you want to tell me? That we have to send the girl away?" Silence. "Is that it?" "Then what is it?" "Because I need to know. If you regret having let her stay, I need to know now." My father sighed. "I'm not regretting it. I'm just tired. Tired of working so much and seeing that it's never enough. Tired of hearing little jokes on the street, of seeing people turning their faces when we pass. Tired of having no rest." "I know," my mother said with a softer voice. "I'm tired too. But we can't give up on her, not now that she's starting to trust us." "I'm not going to give up," my father answered. "I'm just venting. Let me vent, woman. Then vent. But afterwards we get up and continue, because that's what we do." I lay there with my heart tight, because I had understood one thing. Love costs. It costs money. It costs energy. It costs patience. It costs giving up things. It costs facing the judgment of others. It costs losing sleep. It costs effort. It costs sweat. But my parents were paying that price every day, without complaining in front of Eleanor, without throwing it in her face, without making her feel guilty. The next day, I woke up determined. If my parents were making sacrifices, I was going to do my part too. I started helping more with household chores. I got up earlier, fetched water without complaining, washed dishes without anyone asking, swept the yard before going to school. My mother found it strange. "What got into you, Margaret? Are you sick?" "No, Mom. I just want to help." She looked at me in that motherly way that knows there's something behind it. But she didn't push. She just stroked my hair and said, "You are a good girl. Your mother is lucky to have you." Eleanor also noticed the change. One afternoon, while we were hanging clothes on the line, she asked, "Margaret, you are different. Did something happen?" I thought about lying, saying everything was normal, but I didn't want to have secrets from her. I heard my parents talking. I admitted. I heard my father saying, "It's difficult, that the money isn't enough." Eleanor stopped hanging the clothes and turned pale. I knew it. I knew I was getting in the way. "It's not that, Eleanor. It's not your fault. The money was already short before you arrived. But it got worse because of me. So what? We manage. We always managed." Eleanor stayed quiet, but I saw she was chewing on that inside. That night, she ate less at dinner. She said she wasn't very hungry. My mother looked at her suspiciously, but didn't say anything at the time. But later, when we were already in bed, my mother came into the room and sat on the edge of the bed. "Eleanor, you didn't eat properly today." "I wasn't hungry, Mrs. Mary." "Eleanor, look at me." Eleanor turned, her eyes already shining with tears. "Did you hear something you shouldn't have heard?" Eleanor didn't answer, but her face gave everything away. "My child," my mother started with that firm but affectionate voice. "I know things are tight. I know money is short, food is scarce. But you are not going to die of hunger in this house. You are not going to go without, and you, especially, are not going to go without eating because you think there is little. But I don't want to be a burden. You are not a burden. You are a responsibility. And responsibility, we take on with pleasure when it is for someone we love." Eleanor started to cry, and my mother hugged her, nestled her head in her lap, and kept stroking her hair in that way that calms, that welcomes. "Promise me you will eat properly," my mother asked. "I promise," Eleanor whispered, "and promise you won't carry guilt that isn't yours." Eleanor didn't answer this time. Because we know there are promises we can't keep, no matter how much we want to, and my mother knew that too. That night, I understood that the impact of having Eleanor at home wasn't just on us, it was on her too. She carried the weight of feeling she was taking from us, of feeling that every plate of food of hers was one plate less for me. Every piece of clothing of hers was one more expense for my father, and that hurt. It hurt to know she felt that way. It hurt not being able to take that feeling away from her. But we were going to try. Every day, in every possible way, we were going to try to show her that she wasn't a burden, that she was a blessing, that she had value just by existing, not by being useful, because that was what my mother was trying to teach us, and that was what I, even as a child, was starting to understand. The months went by, and life went on. But things didn't get easier. On the contrary, it seemed that the more time passed, the harder it got. My father lost some days of work because it rained too much and construction stopped. Without work, there was no pay. Without pay, food became even scarcer. We had to eat just mush with salt. Didn't even have greens anymore. My mother stretched the beans with so much water they turned into almost a thin soup. The rice was counted, grain by grain. Sugar had run out a long time ago, and we drank coffee bitter, pretending it didn't make a difference. Eleanor noticed everything. I saw in her eyes that guilt, returning, growing, taking up space. She ate less and less, said she wasn't hungry, that her stomach was upset, but I knew the truth. She was depriving herself to leave more for us. "Eleanor, you need to eat," I insisted, pushing my plate towards her. "I already ate, Margaret. You ate 3 spoonfuls. That's not eating." "It's fine for me." But it wasn't. She was getting thinner, paler. Her clothes started to get loose on her. My mother tried to hide the worry, but I saw in her eyes that mother's fear when a child isn't well, and it wasn't just hunger that squeezed. The gossip in the village had gotten worse. Nancy hadn't stopped spreading poison. She told other ladies that my mother was raising a street girl who was going to rob us, bring misfortune to the house, who was a bad influence on me. The children at school started repeating what they heard from their parents. One day a boy, the son of the grocer, shouted at Eleanor in the middle of the playground. "Hey, beggar girl, go back to the street where you came from." Eleanor stood still, red with shame, eyes full of tears. I dropped everything I was doing and went at the boy. "Repeat that. Repeat it and see what happens." He laughed. "Why? It's true. Everyone knows she lived begging for food from door to door. So what? At least she isn't the son of a loan shark who charges interest from the poor." The boy lunged at me, but the teacher appeared and separated us, took us both to the principal's office, and called my parents. My father had to leave work, lose another day of pay to come get me at school. On the way back home, he walked quietly, jaw clenched. I knew he was angry, very angry. When we arrived, he sat in the chair, took off his hat and looked at me. "Margaret, I didn't raise you to fight at school." "But Dad," he insulted Eleanor, "and do you think hitting him solves anything? Do you think that will make people stop talking?" But I couldn't let it go. "Yes, you could." He raised his voice. "A rare thing. You should have stayed quiet, ignored it, walked away. Now you gave people more to talk about. Now they'll say we're raising two fighting girls, without manners." I lowered my head, feeling tears come. I just wanted to defend her. My father sighed, wiped his hand over his tired face. "I know, daughter, I know. But there are battles we don't win by shouting. There are battles we win with silence, with dignity, by proving people wrong, just by continuing to be good people." That night, Eleanor didn't eat dinner, locked herself in the room, and stayed there quiet. I tried to talk to her, but she didn't answer. "Eleanor, open the door." Silence. "Eleanor, please. Leave me alone, Margaret." "I won't leave you. We talk about everything, remember?" The door opened slowly. Eleanor's face was swollen from crying. "I'm leaving," she said with a hoarse voice. "No, you're not." "Yes, I am. I can't take it anymore. I can't stand being the reason for so much confusion, so much trouble. Your father lost work because of me today. You fought at school because of me. Your family is starving because of me." "Eleanor." "No, Margaret. Enough. I thank you for everything you did for me from the heart, but I can't stay here. I am destroying this family." She started gathering her few things. The green dress my father had given her, the comb my mother had lent, the rag doll we shared. "Eleanor, stop that," I asked, holding her arm. "Let me go, Margaret. I won't let go. You are not leaving this house. I need to go." "Where? To the street again? To starve again? To sleep in the open? If I have to. It's not necessary. You have a home, you have a family, you have us. But you can't afford to have me." She screamed this time, and the scream echoed through the small house. My mother appeared at the door, worried. "What is happening here?" "She wants to leave, Mom," I said with a trembling voice. "She wants to leave and won't listen to me." My mother entered the room, closed the door behind her, and stood there, looking at Eleanor. "Is this true?" Eleanor couldn't look in her eyes. I think it's better, Mrs. Mary. I'm only bringing trouble." "Look at me, Eleanor." Eleanor raised her eyes full of tears. "Do you think if I wanted you out of this house, I wouldn't have sent you away on the first day? At the first problem, at the first gossip, but there isn't any but. If you are here, it is because I choose every day. And no Mrs. Nancy, no gossip, no difficulty is going to change that. But you are in need. We were already in need before you. Poor people's life is like this, Eleanor. It's tightening the belt. It's making miracles with little. It's enduring. But we endure together as a family. And you are family." Eleanor collapsed, fell to her knees on the floor and cried. Cried like I had never seen anyone cry. A cry that came from a place so deep it seemed endless. My mother knelt too, hugged Eleanor, and let her cry everything out. All the fear, all the rejection, all the stored pain. "You are not going anywhere," my mother repeated, rocking her in her arms. "You stay. You stay because this is your place, here with us." I knelt too, hugged both of them, and we stayed there, the three of us, huddled on the floor of that small room. Outside, the storm was strong, thunder, wind, rain beating on the roof. But inside there, in that hug, there was something stronger than any storm. There was love, there was choice, there was family. And while the rain fell outside, washing the world, we held on. Because that was what we did. We held on. If you are here on this channel, Grandparents Confessions, for the first time, don't forget to subscribe here in this corner of memory. This is very important to us. After that night, something changed in the house. It wasn't a big change of those you see from afar. It was a quiet change inside, like when a crack in the wall stops growing because someone put plaster in the right place. Eleanor didn't talk about leaving anymore, but she didn't go back to being the same either. She became quieter, more distant, did everything she needed to do, helped with everything, but it was as if a part of her had stayed trapped in that night, trapped in the fear of not being wanted enough. I tried to start conversations, make her laugh, but she only smiled in that polite way that didn't reach her eyes. My mother noticed too. I saw her looking at Eleanor with that worry of a mother who feels when her child isn't well, but doesn't know how to fix it. At school, things changed too. After the fight, some boys started avoiding me. Others laughed when I passed, made little jokes softly. Teresa, who used to play with me sometimes, now stayed with her little group, looking at me from afar, as if I had done something terrible. But there were people who came closer too. There was a girl in my class, Sarah, who was quiet, kind of shy, always sat alone in the corner of the room. One day, at recess, she came to me and said, "Margaret, I thought what you did was beautiful." I looked at her, surprised. "What? Defending your sister?" "A lot of people wouldn't have the courage." "She's my sister." There was nothing to think about. Sarah smiled in that shy way of hers. "Can I sit with you guys?" "Sure." And that was how we gained a friend. Sarah was the daughter of a washerwoman. She lived in a house even smaller than ours. She knew well what it was to be in need. She understood without needing explanation. She and Eleanor got along well from the start. The two were alike. Quiet, careful, with that way of someone who has suffered and therefore treats everyone with delicacy. But even with the new friendship, even with Sarah around, Eleanor remained different, continued carrying that invisible weight. At home, my father was also changed. He stayed quiet longer, staring at the wall, calculating bills that never closed. My mother tried to cheer him up, but even she was tired. Tired of stretching the little bit, of inventing recipes with nothing, of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. One afternoon, I was in the yard helping hang clothes when I heard my parents talking in the kitchen. The window was open, and the voices came clear. "William, we can't go on like this," my mother said with a choked voice. "I know, Mary, I know, but what do you want me to do? Work doesn't appear, money doesn't stretch, and I'm not going to do something stupid to get more." "I'm not asking you to do something stupid. I'm saying we need to think of something. The girls are thin. You are thin. I'm thin. We can't handle this." "How? Do you think I don't know that? Do you think I don't see?" My father's voice was broken in a way I had never heard before. And that scared me more than anything. "William," my mother continued softer now, "I'm not charging you. I know you do what you can. I just don't know what to do anymore." Silence. Then I heard a sob. My father was crying. My father, who was a strong man, who carried bags of cement all day, who never complained about anything, was crying. "I feel like a failure, Mary. A failure. I can't even feed my family properly." "You are not a failure. You are an honest, hard-working man. It's not your fault. It's the fault of this unfair life that makes the poor grind and still go hungry. But I had to find a way. We will find a way together as we always have." I stood there, with wet clothes in my hand, feeling the world collapse a little, because until that moment I thought my father was capable of solving everything, that he was strong, invincible. You know, my dears, that is the most heartbreaking moment of growing up, when we realize our parents are just human too. They get scared, and they cry. And let me tell you, the tears of a strong man weigh heavier than any burden in this world. But there, hearing him cry, I understood that he was also fragile, that he also had fear, that he also didn't know what to do. And that scared me, because if even the adults didn't know, who would know? That night I couldn't sleep properly. I kept turning from one side to the other, thinking. Eleanor was next to me, also awake. I knew because her breathing wasn't sleeping breathing. "Eleanor," I called softly. "Hi, are you awake?" "I am." "Can't sleep either?" "No." We stayed quiet for a while, just listening to the wind outside and the creaking of the old house. "Margaret," she said, almost whispering, "I heard your mother and father talking today about money." I heard too. I wanted so much to be able to help, wanted to work, earn money, bring food home, but I am just a child. I'm good for nothing. You are good, yes, you help with everything here, but it's not enough. I eat the food, I use the clothes, I spend, and I give nothing back. Eleanor, you are thinking wrong. You are not a bill. You are a person. You don't need to give anything back. You just need to be here. But that's not enough. Just being isn't enough. I need to be useful. I turned to her, tried to see her face in the dark. You are already useful. You are my sister. You keep me company, make me laugh, teach me things. That doesn't count. Eleanor stayed quiet, and I heard a soft sniffle. She was crying again. I just wanted not to be a problem. You are not a problem. You are part of the solution. We face this together. You, me, my mother, my father, together. She held my hand under the blanket, squeezed tight. Thank you for not giving up on me. I will never give up on you. Never. In the days that came after, we tried to do things differently. My mother started taking in more washing. She washed by day, ironed by night, slept little. Me and Eleanor helped with what we could. We wrung the clothes, hung them, folded them. It was heavy work, but it was money. My father got some odd jobs on weekends, carried things for the grocer, fixed a fence for a farmer, did what appeared. He came back home exhausted, but brought some change, and every cent made a difference. Me and Eleanor started going into the woods to fetch firewood. We came back with heavy bundles on our backs, hands scratched by thorns. But it was free firewood, one less expense. And little by little, very little by little, things started improving. They didn't go back to being plentiful, no, but they stopped being desperate. There was a day my mother managed to buy a piece of pork, small, but it was meat. She fried it with garlic and onion, and the smell took over the whole house. We ate slowly, savoring every little piece, as if it were the most important meal in the world. This is almost a party, my father said with a little smile. It is a party, my mother answered. Party of those who didn't give up? Eleanor ate too, ate properly this time. And when she finished, she looked at my mother and said for the first time, "Thank you, Mom." My mother stopped with her fork in the air, eyes filling with tears. "What did you say?" Eleanor turned red, but repeated more firmly, "Thank you, Mom." My mother got up, went to Eleanor, hugged her head against her stomach and cried. Cried with relief, with joy, with love. "My daughter," she whispered. "My girl, you were always my daughter. Always." And in that hug, in that small kitchen, smelling of garlic and fried meat, I felt that the crack had closed, that the storm had passed, that we had endured together, as a family, as we always did. After Eleanor called my mother Mom for the first time, something changed inside her. It wasn't overnight, but little by little I saw her loosening up, smiling more, speaking louder, occupying space without apologizing. School was also different. With Sarah on our side, we had become a group of 3. The other girls continued looking at us crooked sometimes, but we didn't care anymore. We had each other, and that was enough. It was Sarah who had the idea. "Do you know what we could do?" she said one day at recess. "What?" I asked. "We could sell candy at the school door. My mother makes fudge, which is a wonder. We could sell it and split the money." I looked at Eleanor. She looked at me, and both spoke at the same time. "Let's try." That afternoon, we went to Sarah's house to talk to her mother, Mrs. Betty. She was a short, round lady with a wide smile that occupied her whole face. "So you want to sell my fudge?" she asked, amused. "We pay for the materials," I said seriously, "and split the profit with you." Mrs. Betty gave a hearty laugh. "Materials, I have sugar, milk, butter, cocoa. You help me make it, and you can keep the profit for yourselves. I just want to see girls working, learning to get by in life." We stayed the whole afternoon at Sarah's house, learning to make fudge, mixing sugar and milk, stirring non-stop until it reached the right point. Hands got sticky, sweat ran down, but we were happy. When the fudge was ready, cooling in the pan, we looked at each other with pride. "We did this," Eleanor said admiringly. "We did," I repeated. The next day, we took the fudge to school, wrapped in wax paper. We sold it for a penny each. In the beginning, no one wanted to buy. They looked with suspicion. But then a boy, the son of the blacksmith, bought one, ate it, and his eyes widened. "What good fudge," he shouted. "I'll take 2 more." The news spread fast. At recess time, there was a line of people wanting to buy. In 2 days, we had sold everything. When we counted the money, we laughed with so much happiness. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We had achieved it alone. We divided it into 3 equal parts. Each one took her share home. When I arrived and showed the coins to my mother, she looked incredulous. "Where did you get this?" "Margaret, we sold fudge at school. Me, Eleanor, and Sarah." My mother looked at Eleanor, who was radiant. "You did this alone?" "We did. Sarah's mother taught us." My mother sat in the chair with the coins in her hand and began to cry. But it wasn't a cry of sadness. It was a cry of pride. "My girls," she said, hugging us. "My girls are growing up. With the money we bought beans, rice, and there was even enough for a little bit of molasses." My father, when he found out, became serious. But I saw he was moved. "You are hard workers," he said, messing up my hair. "You'll go far in life." From there on, every week we made fudge. It became a tradition. Went to Sarah's house, made the batch, took it to school, and sold everything. The money wasn't much, but it helped. It helped more than we imagined. Eleanor was transformed. She had a shine in her eyes that didn't exist before, a way of walking with her head higher, as if she had discovered she was capable. "Margaret," she told me one night, "I never thought I could do something like this. Something like earning my own money, helping at home for real. I always thought I was useless, that I only caused expense, but now I see that I can, that I have value." "You always had value, Eleanor, always. But now I believe it." And it was true. She believed, and that belief changed everything. At school, even Mrs. Helen praised us. "You 3 are an example," she said in front of the class. "Hard-working, studious girls who don't wait for everything to fall from the sky. Congratulations." Teresa and the other girls made ugly faces, but we didn't care. We had better things to do than care about others' envy. The months passed, and we grew, not just in age, but inside, learning that we could make things happen, that we didn't need to just wait, that we had power in our own hands. My mother always said, "A girl who learns to work early doesn't stay helpless in life, doesn't depend on a husband, doesn't depend on anyone, can manage." And we were learning that. In practice, there was a special day. A day we had sold more than usual, and there was good money left over. Eleanor looked at the coins and said, "I want to buy a present for Mr. William." Sarah and I looked at her surprised. "A present?" "Yeah, he works so hard and I never gave him anything. I want to give something. I want him to know I am grateful." We went to the store and looked at what they had, until Eleanor saw a bandana, one of those thick cotton ones workers use. "That's the one," she said. "It will protect him from the sun." We bought the bandana and wrapped it with care in a paper we found. When we arrived home, Eleanor went to my father, who was sitting on the porch step, tired from the day's work. "Dad," she said, and this time the word came out natural, "I bought something for you." My father looked at her surprised. "For me? It's with the money I earned selling fudge." She handed him the package. My father opened it slowly, saw the bandana, and stared without saying anything. "It's to protect from the sun," Eleanor explained nervously. "For when you are working." My father remained silent, and when he lifted his face, tears were running down. "No one ever gave me a present before," he said with a hoarse voice. "Now someone has?" Eleanor answered, smiling. My father hugged her, hugged tight, in that way of someone who never wants to let go. "You are my daughter," he said. "My daughter of the heart, and I am proud of you." Eleanor cried on his shoulder, but it was a good cry, a cry of someone who finally found her place. And in that hug, on that old porch, I saw that we had won against hunger, gossip, fear, rejection, won because we didn't give up, because we chose to stay, because we chose to love. And now we were reaping the fruit of that seed planted on that rainy day, when a girl knocked on the door asking for food. The years passed, my dear, slowly, the way time passes when we are children and think the whole life is ahead. Me and Eleanor grew up together, sharing everything, the room, the bed, the dreams, the fears. We continued selling fudge. Then we started making other things. Cookies on rainy days, peanut brittle when it was peanut season, pumpkin pie when there were pumpkins in the yard. We became known in the village. The candy girls, people called us. The money we earned helped a lot. It wasn't enough to make us rich, of course not. But it was enough to take that tightness from the chest, to sleep without the stomach growling, to have a little dignity. Eleanor loosened up more and more, became a talkative, cheerful girl, full of dreams. She said she wanted to study, wanted to be a teacher, wanted to teach other children like her. Children who needed someone to believe in them. "You will achieve it," I always said. "Do you really think so?" she asked with that shine of hope in her eyes. I am sure. And I was, because I saw the strength Eleanor had inside her. A strength that came from having survived abandonment, hunger, rejection, and still having chosen to continue, having chosen to believe life could be different. There was an afternoon I will never forget. We were sitting under the apple tree, which was now older, more twisted, but still bore fruit. The sun was going down slowly, painting the sky with those beautiful colors only God knows how to make. Orange, pink, that gold that seems to have its own light. "Margaret," Eleanor said suddenly, "do you remember the day I knocked on your door?" "I remember. How could I forget? I remember everything too, the cold, the rain, the hunger. But do you know what I remember most?" "What?" "Your mother's look, when she opened the door and saw me there, wet, dirty, asking for food. She didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me with respect, as if I were a real person, you know." I nodded, listening. In that moment, I felt something I had never felt before. I felt I existed, that I mattered, and that saved me. Margaret, it wasn't just the food, it was the way she looked at me. Tears began to run down my face, because I understood the weight of that moment, understood what a simple look of dignity had done in the life of an abandoned child. "My mother always knew how to see people," I said. "She always said everyone deserves respect. Rich, poor, child, old, everyone. And she taught me that too," Eleanor continued. "Taught me I don't need to make myself small to fit in places, that I can occupy space, that I can dream, that I can be. And you are, Eleanor, you are so much." She smiled, wiped her tears. "I just wanted every abandoned child to have what I had, a door that opens, a table that shares, a family that chooses to stay. When you become a teacher, you will be that for the children," I said. "You will be the door that opens." "I will try. I will try to be half of what your mother was to me." We stayed there until the sun disappeared completely. And I thought about how life had taken us on such different paths, but in the end, they met in that small house in Pennsylvania. How my mother's decision to open the door had changed everything, not just for Eleanor, for me too, because I had learned things not even school teaches. I had learned about generosity, about sacrifice, about love, which isn't easy, but chooses to stay anyway. Had learned that family isn't just blood, it's choice, it's presence, it's a hug that welcomes, and a hand that holds. That night, when we were already in bed, each in her corner, Eleanor said, "Margaret, thank you." "Why?" "For everything, for sharing your mother with me, your father, your house, your life. I know it wasn't easy for you in the beginning. It was true. In the beginning I had felt jealous, had complained. But now, looking back, I couldn't imagine my life without Eleanor. You gave me a sister," I answered. "You taught me to share, taught me the world is bigger than me, and that made me better. We made each other better," she corrected. "One helped the other." And it was true. We had grown up together. It wasn't just Eleanor who had been transformed. I had too. I had stopped being a selfish girl who thought everything was just hers and had become someone who knew the most important thing in life isn't to have, it's to be and to give. The years continued passing. We finished elementary school. Mrs. Helen cried on the last day, said she would miss the hard-working girls. We cried too because that tiny school with old desks and cracked chalkboard had been the place where we had learned not just to read and write, had been the place where we had learned to be people. Eleanor continued studying. My mother made sacrifices to pay for notebooks, pencils, books, but she said, "Education is the only thing no one takes from us. You can lose a house, can lose money, can lose everything, but what is in your head no one takes." Eleanor studied with dedication, stayed up late with the kerosene lamp lit, reading, doing math, memorizing lessons. She wanted to be a teacher, and I was sure she would make it. I also continued studying, but my dream was different. I wanted to have a house of my own, where I could receive people, where I could open the door for whoever needed it the way my mother had done. I wanted to continue what she had started, that chain of kindness. There was a Sunday after Mass that we were walking home when we met Mrs. Nancy. She was older, more bent, face full of wrinkles from frowning so much. She looked at us and looked away without courage to face us. Eleanor, who before would have lowered her head, now walked with her head held high, passed by her without giving importance. When we turned the corner, I asked, "Didn't you feel angry? At who?" "At Mrs. Nancy, at everything she said, at all the harm she tried to do." Eleanor thought a little before answering, "No, Margaret, I don't feel anger. I feel pity because she lives bitter, worried about others' lives, without peace in her own life. She isn't happy, and I am. So, who won?" I looked at my sister, because now I called her that without even thinking, and felt proud. Proud of the woman she was becoming, of the wisdom she had conquered, of the peace she had found. "You are incredible, you know," I said. She laughed. "I learned from the best." And it was true. She had learned from my mother to have strength, from my father to have dignity, from me to have courage, and from life, that tough teacher, she had learned to have resilience. When we arrived home, my mother was in the yard, hanging clothes. She was older too. Her hair had started to gray, her hands were more tired, but the smile was the same. That smile that welcomes, that calms, that makes us feel at home. "My daughters arrived?" she asked. "We arrived, Mom," we both answered at the same time. And in that moment I understood that that was true victory. It wasn't having lots of money, wasn't having a big house, wasn't having a recognized name. It was having belonging. It was having love. It was having peace. It was knowing that no matter what happened out there, inside that little house, there was a safe place. There was welcome, there was family, and that is priceless. Life took each of us on her path, my dear. Eleanor managed to finish her studies. It was difficult, cost sacrifice from the whole family, but she made it, became a teacher just like she had dreamed, started teaching in a little rural school, earned little, but was happy. Saw in the children's eyes the same thing she had seen when she was little, the hunger to learn, the will to be someone. I got married, had my children, took care of my house, but never stopped doing what my mother had taught me. There was always an extra plate on the table for whoever needed it. There was always an open door for whoever knocked, and I taught that to my children too. We share because it was by sharing that we learned to live. Eleanor also married a good, hard-working man who respected her. They didn't have children, but Eleanor said all her students were her children, and she took care of them with the same affection my mother had taken care of her. I promised I would never let her go, didn't I? But promises are fragile things when life gets hard. Eleanor moved west, chasing a teaching job in a mining town, desperate to prove she could stand on her own 2 feet. At first, the letters came every week, then every month, then silence. I got married, had children, and drowned in my own responsibilities. I told myself I was too busy to write, that she was fine. But deep down, a cold guilt began to grow in my chest. I had let my sister drift away into the void. For 40 years, I lived with the gnawing fear that she had died alone, thinking we had forgotten her. That silence wasn't just distance, my dear. It was a wound that refused to heal. My parents grew old. My father got sick first. The body that had carried so much weight, that had sweated so much in the sun, began to charge the bill. He died in a cold winter, surrounded by people who loved him. Eleanor came for the wake and cried like the daughter she was. Held my hand and my mother's hand, and we stood there, the 3 of us holding on to each other. "He was a father to me," Eleanor said with a broken voice. "The only real father I had. And you were his daughter," my mother answered. "He died knowing he had 2 daughters who loved him. That is a blessing." My mother lasted a few more years. She got more fragile, more tired, but never lost that light in her eyes, that goodness that made her who she was. When she departed, It was as if a light had gone out in the world. Eleanor came back for the funeral. It was the last time I saw her as a young woman. We stood over my mother's grave, holding hands, 2 orphans now. After the burial, Eleanor hugged me tight and said she couldn't stay in Pennsylvania anymore, too many memories. She packed her bags and boarded a bus headed for California. She promised to write. I promised to visit. But life had other plans. That was the last time I saw my sister. I know you might be blaming me, blaming us for letting each other go for so long. But we were young, and pride is a heavy thing to carry. Eleanor wanted to succeed before coming back, and I foolishly thought tomorrow would last forever. But that tomorrow turned into 40 years of silence. Please, don't be like us. Don't let pride or busyness steal the people you love. Inside were letters, old photos, and yellowed paper. What is this? I asked. Eleanor opened the paper carefully. It was a handwritten prayer in my mother's shaky handwriting. It said, "Lord, thank you for giving me 2 daughters. One came from my womb, the other came from your hand. But both came from your love. Protect them always. Amen." We cried together there, embraced in the middle of that old house that had been the beginning of everything. The years continued passing. I grew old. The body got tired. Diabetes appeared, then high blood pressure, then heart trouble. The doctor said I needed surgery. Serious operation, dangerous. "Are you willing to run the risk?" he asked. "I am," I answered, "because I still have reason to live. I have children. I have grandchildren. I have people who need me." I was admitted to that big hospital in the city, far from my home, far from everything familiar. The corridors were too white, too cold, smelled of medicine and disinfectant. Didn't smell of apples, didn't smell of damp earth, just smelled of hospital. The fear wasn't just about dying. It was the crushing loneliness. My children were far away, stuck in a snowstorm, unable to reach the hospital in time. I was facing the abyss completely alone. I gripped the cold bedsheets, tears streaming down my wrinkled cheeks, praying for just one familiar face, one warm hand to hold. I whispered into the darkness, "Please, don't let me die among strangers." I lay there in that high bed, looking at the ceiling, praying softly. That was when a nurse entered. She came with a tray, measuring blood pressure, writing things down, had her hair in a bun, glasses on the tip of her nose, the tired face of someone who works too much. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Margaret," she said without looking at me. "I came to measure your pressure." She put the device on my arm, squeezed, watched the numbers, and suddenly she stopped and stood looking at me, looking for real, as if trying to remember something. "Ma'am?" She started with a strange voice. "Are you from Clearwater Creek?" I widened my eyes. "I am, my child. How do you know? Did you live in a wooden house, near the creek? Did you have an apple tree in the yard?" My heart started beating faster. "I did, yes." She took off her glasses, wiped them with a trembling hand, put them back, and I saw in her eyes, those eyes I knew since childhood. "Eleanor," I whispered in disbelief. She dropped everything she was holding, covered her mouth with her hand, and started crying right there in the middle of the shift. "It's me, Margaret, it's me." "Eleanor?" I gasped, my voice barely a whisper. "But you went to California. We lost touch so long ago." She sat on the edge of the bed, holding my hands with hers hands that now had wrinkles and spots, just like mine. "I came back, Margaret. After my husband died, I was left alone. I felt a calling to come back home. I took a nursing course in my 60s. Can you believe it? After I retired from teaching, I felt useless sitting at home. I spent my whole life nurturing children's minds, but after my husband passed, I wanted to learn how to heal bodies too. I guess I just couldn't stop taking care of people, Margaret. It's in my blood." She laughed through her tears. "My God, Eleanor." We hugged right there, crying, laughing, unable to believe it. 40 years. It had been 40 years of silence. And now, here she was. The sister I thought I had lost to time was the one saving my life. And now there, on the eve of a surgery that could be my last night, life had brought us together again. "Margaret," she said, holding my face with both hands, "you have no idea what you and Mrs. Mary did for me." "No idea, Eleanor. Let me speak." I need to speak. If it weren't for that plate of food, that roof, that love, I don't even know if I would be alive today. You saved me, gave me dignity, taught me I had value. And you do, I said, crying. You always did. And now? She continued, wiping her tears. Now I am the one who is going to take care of you. I am the one who is going to ensure you come out of this surgery well, that you go back to your children, to your grandchildren, because it is my turn to give back, to pay, even if just a little, everything you did. You don't need to pay anything, Eleanor. I know, but I want to. I want to be able to do for you what you did for me. Hold your hand when you are afraid. She stayed with me the whole night, even off duty, even without being obliged. Stayed there, sitting in the chair next to the bed, holding my hand, talking about life, about the past, about everything that had happened in those years. Do you remember? She said, smiling. That apple tree. I remember. We spent hours under it. Yeah. And do you know what I always thought when I was there? I thought that one day I wanted to be strong like that tree, that endured storms, that bent but didn't break, and that bore fruit, even when the weather was bad. And you succeeded, I said. You are that tree, Eleanor. The next day, when they took me to surgery, it was she who came to prepare me, bathed me, combed my hair, made a braid the same way we did when we were children. Ready, she said. Now you are beautiful, ready to go back to your family. Eleanor, if I don't come back, you are coming back. I won't let you go away like this. No, me and God. We are going to ensure that. She touched her forehead to mine. Thank you, Margaret, for everything, for having been my sister, for having shared your life with me. Thank you for teaching me what real love is. And so, with my sister's hand holding mine, I entered that room without fear, because I knew the kindness my mother had planted so many years ago was there alive, holding my hand. Life had come full circle. The surgery was a success, thank God. When I woke up, still kind of groggy from anesthesia, the first thing I saw was Eleanor's face. She was there by my side with that smile that lit up everything. Welcome back, she whispered, holding my hand. I came back, I managed to say with a weak voice. Of course you came back. I wasn't going to let you go away, just like that. We still have a lot of history to live. In the days that followed, while I recovered in that hospital room, Eleanor was always nearby. Even when it wasn't her shift, she found a way to appear. Brought a warm broth she made herself at home, adjusted my pillow, told stories to distract me from the pain. The other nurses and doctors started to notice. Are you relatives? They asked. We are sisters. Eleanor answered with pride and didn't need to explain anything else. Because we were real sisters, the kind life joined and nothing separates. My children came to visit me. They were moved when they met Eleanor, when they heard the whole story. My oldest daughter cried, Mom, you never told this properly. Because it's not a story to tell, my daughter, it's a story to live. And we lived it. Eleanor talked to my children, to my grandchildren, told stories of when we were children, of the mischief we made, of the fudge we sold. My grandchildren's eyes went wide. Grandma, you sold candy at school? Asked the smallest. I did, yes, to help at home. Back then, everyone helped, and Aunt Eleanor went along. I did. We did everything together. Eleanor messed up the boy's hair. Your grandmother taught me that we don't need to wait to get big to make a difference in the world. Even a child can help. Even a child can be kind. When I was discharged from the hospital, Eleanor insisted on going with me to my house, helped settle me in, prepared everything I needed, taught my children how to take care of me. Anything, you call me, she said. Anything, I come. Before leaving, she sat on the edge of my bed, took my hand. Margaret, I need to tell you something. Tell me. That night, when I knocked on your door, I was ready to give up. I had walked all day asking for food, hearing no. I was so hungry, so cold, so tired. I had decided that was going to be the last door. If they didn't open, if they didn't give me anything, I was going to lie down under a tree and wait for whatever came. My heart tightened. Eleanor? But your mother opened the door, and not only opened, she invited me in, gave me food, gave me a roof, gave me family. She saved me. Margaret, in the most literal sense of the word. She saved me. Tears ran down her face and mine too. And now, so many years later, I could give back a little bit. Could be here when you needed. Could hold your hand just like you held mine. And that closes the circle. You know? I know, I whispered. Kindness returned. Returned in the form of care, of presence, of love. Just like your mother always said, kindness isn't lost. It just goes around. So it turns out, it's true. That bowl of watered-down beans my mother gave away in 1940 didn't just vanish. It traveled through time, through storms, through 80 years of life, only to come back and save her own daughter when she needed it most. So go ahead, my friend. Plant your seeds of kindness. Don't worry, the tree will grow and offer you shade exactly when the sun burns hottest. She hugged me tight, and we stayed like that for a while. Two old ladies hugging, crying tears of gratitude, of love, of a life lived. When she left, I stayed there in my bed, thinking about everything, about how life had been generous to us, not in the sense of money or comfort, but in the sense of love, of purpose, of meaning. Today, sitting here in this old armchair, with my knee popping and my white hair, I look back and see the whole journey. I see the girl I was, selfish and small, learning to share. I see Eleanor, lost and scared, learning to trust. I see my mother, tired and poor, but rich of heart, teaching us to be real people. And I understand now clearly what the greatest lesson was. The lesson wasn't about pitying others, wasn't about doing charity out of obligation, wasn't even about being nice because religion says so. The lesson was about seeing the other as a person, as someone who feels, who suffers, who dreams, and choosing, even when it is difficult, even when it costs, to extend the hand. Because when we extend the hand, we don't lose anything. We gain in love, gain in purpose, gain in meaning for life. My mother extended her hand, not because she had much, but because she knew that a little divided becomes enough, and that love multiplied becomes abundance. Eleanor taught me that we can come from anywhere, can have any past and still become someone incredible. That the wound doesn't define us, that we can choose to be more than pain, can choose to be love. And I learned from both that family isn't an accident. It is a daily choice. It is waking up and deciding to stay. It is sharing bread even when bread is scarce. It is hugging even when tired. It is forgiving even when it hurts. It is believing even when it is difficult. So, my dear, if there is one thing I want you to take from this story, it is this. Don't fail to open the door. Don't fail to share the bread. Don't fail to extend the hand, because we don't know when we are planting a seed. We don't know when that simple gesture, that plate of food, that tight hug is going to change everything in someone's life. My mother didn't know on that rainy day that she was saving a life. She only knew there was a hungry child at the door, and she chose to do what was within her reach, share. And that seed planted so many years ago returned in the form of care when I needed it most. Returned in the form of a hand that held mine in the hour of fear. Returned in the form of love that crossed decades and remained alive, strong, true. Today I know I won't live forever. The body is already tired, already gave what it had to give, but I will go in peace. In peace, because I lived right, because I loved for real, because I made a difference, even if small, in someone's life. And when I go, I will leave this for my children, for my grandchildren, for whoever wants to listen. Be the door that opens, be the table that shares, be the hug that welcomes, because kindness isn't lost, my daughter. It just goes around. And when it returns, and you can be sure it will return, it will come loaded with blessing, with love, with miracle, just like happened to me, just like happened to Eleanor, just like can happen to you if you choose to plant. So plant, my dear. Plant without fear. Plant without expecting reward. Plant because it is right, because it is good, because it is human. And when life surprises you with the fruit of that planting, when you see kindness returning round, perfect, at the right time, you will remember this story, of the girl at the door, of the plate of food, of the family that chose each other, and you will understand with a full heart that every drop of sweat, every tear, every sacrifice was worth it. It was worth it, because in the end, my dear, What remains isn't the money, isn't the house, isn't the name. What remains is the love we planted, is the life we touched, is the difference we made, and that no one takes from us. Not time, not death, not anything. That is eternal. So, look at your hands. Right now, look at them. They are empty, aren't they? But they have the power to change a destiny. You don't need money. You don't need a big house. You just need the courage to open the door when everyone else locks theirs. My mother opened a door on a rainy Tuesday, and 80 years later, that door opened back up to save her daughter's life. Kindness is a boomerang, my love. Throw it far, throw it hard, and have faith. It will come back to you. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone you love, and don't forget to subscribe. We are all just walking each other home.